Hello, everybody. We're going to move on to what happens next in the history of Massachusetts. In our last slideshow, we learned about the Battle of Lexington and Concord, which was the first battle of the American Revolution. And this was the first time that the colonists actually get into a real battle with the British, and it's considered the start of the Revolution. The colonists are the winners of that battle. If you remember, the British did not get the ammunition they were hoping to capture, and the British had to turn around and retreat back to Boston. And the Patriots are considered, or the colonists are considered, the winners of that battle. So that shocked the world. That was in April of 1775. And now we're going to move on to what's called the Battle of Bunker Hill, which is a few months later. It's in June of 1775. So here's what happened. In May, the king is furious that about the Battle of Lexington and Concord, and he sends even more soldiers to live in Boston. So here's Boston. He sends over more ships, and basically the British soldiers take over Boston, and they also block the harbor, which I'll show you in another slide, which had already been blocked, but now there's even more British warships. Now I want you to pay attention to up here. This is Charlestown, and that's going to be very important in this story. This is where Paul Revere rode. He went right here, rode across the bay, and got on a horse in Charlestown, and then headed to Concord. This is where the British went. They went this way on their little boats, remember, and they got off and they marched. So that's Charlestown, which is right across from Boston. This is another close-up picture of this. So I'll show you. This is how the British send these warships. Those red things are the British ships that are completely blocking in Boston and surrounding the city. Now, most of these towns over around Boston are full of people who are on the side of the Patriots, the Minutemen. Okay, so one night, the Patriots learn that the British want to invade Charlestown. They want to capture Charlestown because it has a really big hill, which is good for seeing things when a war is happening. So the Patriots find this out and they come up with a plan. And this story starts on June 17th, 1775. Here's a map, a close-up map of Charlestown. So here's Charlestown, and this is the hill that the British wanted to get. It's called Bunker Hill, and it's the highest hill. And from there, you can see out into the ocean. You can see far away. But there's another hill up here, and this is called Breed's Hill. Okay, and so the Patriots know that the British want to capture this. So they come up with a plan. So this battle is called the Battle of Bunker Hill, but actually most of the action happens right here on this hill called Breed's Hill. So overnight, the Patriots sneak, a couple thousand men come overnight, and they build a fort on top of Breed's Hill, which was the hill closer to the water. And they have to be really quiet, and they sneak in overnight, and they dig this enormous, gigantic hole. All together, they work all night long. They dig a huge hole, and they use the mud from the hole to make walls. And they basically build this mud fort on top of a hill, and they use sticks to try to make the mud a little more sturdy. And then the Patriots get in the hole they dug, and they wait. So this is a picture of, this is a painting of what some people thought it looked like. So this is, can you see this wall is made of dirt? And then the Patriots get in. Can you see the hole here? They get in there and they just wait for the morning to come. Okay, so meanwhile, the British have no idea that this is happening because they're waiting in the harbor on their boats. They don't know that the Patriots have snuck in to do this overnight. This is a picture from a reenactment of this battle, and this just kind of shows you this is a dirt wall, and here's what the Patriots would have looked like behind that dirt wall. So just remember, they're not an army. They don't really have their own uniforms. They're not super organized. Each guy has like one gun, some bullets, and some ammunition, but they are not a true army. So they're in their fort at the top of the hill, and in the morning, when the British commanders wake up, they look up over to Charlestown and they see this fort and they're shocked. So from their boats, which are in the harbor, they begin to fire cannonballs and they're trying to hit the fort. But because it's up high, they can't hit it. So they're not having very much luck. So the next step the British take is they put a bunch of their soldiers, hundreds of them, into these little boats, these dories, and they row from the big ships in the harbor, and they row across the water, and they get to the ground at the bottom. So if you look in this picture, you can kind of see this is a picture, a sketch, but this is the fort up at the top of the hill. So these British soldiers cross, and when they get on the ground, they organize themselves as an army would. So they march in big lines. This is kind of important in this story. And they're in rows. They have bright red coats, which are pretty easy to see. And they only move when their commander tells them to march. That's how a good soldier was trained in this time. So the British organize themselves into these lines, and they start to march up the hill. The Patriots are waiting at the top, and they're watching the British come up the hill. But they know they don't have a lot of ammunition. They don't have extra gunpowder. So their leader, whose the name is William Prescott, stands on top of the mud wall and he yells something to his men. This is kind of a famous quote. He says, "Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes." And what that means is don't fire your gun until the British soldiers are close enough that you can actually see the white part of their eyes, because they don't have enough ammunition to waste. So they've got to be very brave and not fire their guns until the British get closer. So the colonists, in addition to the fort that they built on the top, they also made these fences out of pieces of wood. They're called a rail fence. They also lie in the grass, kind of on the hill, and they fire at the British as they march up the hill. So if you can picture that group, the group of British soldiers all in line, they're coming up the hill, and the colonists are firing at them from these hidden spots. That's a picture of, this is a rail that they would have built. This is a reenactment. These are actors dressed up. And they're showing you that they would have built these. They're not very much protection, but they're kind of something to hide behind. So the British aren't successful the first time. They go back down the hill. They get reorganized. They get more men because as time passes, more ships are coming over with more soldiers, and they try again. And they go up the hill again. Now the Patriots are starting to run out of supplies and ammunition. So they're kind of in trouble. But amazingly enough, they get the British to turn around and go back down again, because the British have a really tough job. They're going uphill and the Patriots are firing downhill, and they're in these big, huge lines, easy to target. So here is a painting of what the lines would have looked like. So that gives you an idea. The third time the British try to go up the hill, they have more soldiers because more time has passed. More soldiers have arrived in Charlestown, and they march up this hill. And now they have about 1,500 or 2,500 soldiers that are heading up the hill. And on the third try, the British make it over the wall. So you'll see here's these are actors. This British soldier is coming over the wall, and here's a Patriot inside there. So the Patriots have to retreat. They have to turn around and they have to run away. And the British win the fort. But this is an interesting part of this story. The British take the fort. So they got what they wanted. They wanted to capture Charlestown, and they wanted to get on that hill. And they got that done. But these are the numbers that make this an interesting battle. So about 1,500 Patriots fought against about 2,500 British soldiers. So there were way more British soldiers than Patriots. Okay, and remember, the British are a real army. The Patriots are not. They're just some farmers with guns. About 400 Patriots were either injured or killed in this battle. So that's a lot of people, and that's really sad. But about 1,000 British soldiers were injured or killed. So even though the Patriots had far less people, they actually caused a lot more damage to the British than the British caused to the Patriots. So the British win the hill, but the Patriots get something in return. So I'll explain this. The thing that says the British won the hill, but they lost many men. The Patriots lost the hill, but they have fewer casualties. That's like injuries and death. And then here's what the big deal was. They proved that even though they lost the battle, that they could stand up to the British, that they had a chance to defeat them. So sometimes you'll hear this phrase that says, somebody won the battle but lost the war. That actually is connected to this story. The British won this hill, they won this one battle, but we'll find out in later social studies things that eventually the Patriots are the real winners. So that battle had a big effect on the colonists. They feel so good about themselves, even though they lost, because they proved that they could take on the most powerful army in the world. And then more colonists, both in Massachusetts and New England and in the other 13 colonies, decide to join the Patriots and the Sons of Liberty. They decide that they want to become a new nation and they want to be free from Britain. So even though they lost the hill, they had a positive outcome because they end up with more supporters. And we'll continue. And that's the story of Bunker Hill. And Bunker Hill there's a beautiful monument there that you probably have driven by a bunch of times when you go to Boston. And someday you should go there and check it out. There's a nice museum where you can see all of this stuff up close. So we'll continue and next time.